Are tier lists necessary? Nowadays when a new game comes out, within like 2 weeks, people are already trying to like post up their tier list, and for some reason they're like, engagement heaven on social media when it comes to people releasing tier lists. Like, oh, so and so released their tier list, so and so released their tier list, and Event Hubs is kind of known for showing off everybody's tier list. So for it just seems like we live in a world where tier lists are heavy, and it's gotten to the point where some people are just like, I don't even want to see this tier list. Like, I'm muting the word tier list to stop showing up on my feed. So, do you feel like tier lists are necessary? Do you feel like they really serve a purpose, or have they gotten to the point to where we just need to get rid of them? So, just your overall ideology on tier lists. Starting with you, Mr. Gamer Love.
I think tier lists become like a meme kind of, just like a hot topic. Here's a popular. Here's the cool thing to do. Let me make a tier list. And people always are. They're always ready to see like what a top player is going to say with our tier list. And one of my things I've always said about games is people never really take the time to look at stuff for themselves. They just wait on somebody else that's like a name in the community or whatever to show something. But it's like go and test stuff out and find stuff out yourself possibly, because you might have the answer. You might find it out for yourself. Um, but tier lists are, they serve a purpose, but they serve a purpose better when it's like the game has been out for a while and there has been extensive match analysis and footage on like characters like over a period of time, over like, because tier lists are back in Street Fighter 4. I think tier lists was like the most found, like the most found, what's the word I'm looking for, the most foundationally sound. Like, and what I mean by that is the fact that there were a lot of high level players at about the same skill level playing a multitude of characters, and you would see these characters played out throughout a lot of matches. So you had a lot of match footage to go from and analyze. Okay, so these both players are pretty good, about the same level. So out of this certain amount of matches, we've seen these same players or different players play these same characters and this other character. So we've kind of seen the same pattern that this character loses to this character's tool set. But now it's just kind of become a thing. Like when a game first comes out, it's like a tier list within a week or two. It's like, okay. And on one hand, it's like it does show like, okay, so off the rip, if you're pretty in depth with fighting games, you can kind of tell what characters have like solid tools, and you're like, okay, this is a really good tool. And like obviously this move is obviously strong like throughout the whole game, like against whatever character. So you can kind of get an early like prediction of like what character is going to be good, but sometimes it's not always foolproof. Um, MK11, for example, there was a few characters that I knew were strong from the get go. And they had some changes, but like, and it's crazy now these characters are like God, like, and people are complaining about. Cetrion and Liu Kang were two characters that I said from the beginning was, MK11 were powerful. Now look at them. Cetrion is like kind of a household name, and I said from the beginning, everybody like these characters are trash. Cetrion don't do no damage. I'm like, you have to look at stuff like damage is not the only thing that makes a character good. Like people were saying Sonya was just so good. I'm like, people are really saying Sonya's good because of her damage. Sonya, her mix and stuff, and a lot of her tools was nowhere near some as I've seen in some of the other characters. And now Sonya's like kind of just meh in most tier lists that I've seen. But I knew, because like you have to be able to analyze stuff further than that. So with tier lists, it's just like it's popular. Oh, let me see what this person's gonna do, and like I said, it does serve a purpose, because a lot of higher level players they do have that ability to look at a game really fast and say, okay, well, from my analysis right now, this is what I feel that the tier lists are. That these characters have these rankings because of said moves and said match analysis, right? But it's going to change over time, obviously. So I don't feel like tier lists really have a big impact per se until like a year or two into the game. And nowadays it's even different because patches. So if a game never had a patch, then you can say, okay, well, this tier list is set in stone. But now you get patches, and that'll change the whole tier list. Um, so I just think that it is becoming somewhat of a meme, kind of just a hot popular thing to do. But I do think they still serve a purpose, but I feel like only when they're tier lists that are made that are based off actual solid gameplay footage and matches against players of the same or similar skill level over a period of time. You just can't be like, well, 2 weeks I played online for a few matches. These are this tier list. I think tier lists need to be something that has a foundation that's set and built upon over time, and then you can look at the tier list and say, okay, this makes sense now. We've had plenty of footage on like why this character is B tier. We've got plenty of footage and proof on why this character is A tier. So that's my take on tier list, but it's definitely becoming kind of a trend, a topic. I mean, you're doing tier lists for like food and stuff now, which is it's kind of cool and fun to do. But I mean, that's kind of showing you how tier lists have become like a meme in a sense, kind of.
I was about to say food tier list kind of goated though. Like that was
some people have poor taste in their food tier list, but hey, that's neither here nor there.
My perspective on tier lists is at this point, it seems like I said before, like I just said, it's a little subjective. I think right now, tier lists, Devin was saying they're kind of just to me, at least in my opinion, they're kind of a meme. We really don't. I just don't feel like we really need tier lists like that anymore. I feel like there's something to use, there's something to do, there's something to put up there. But let's be honest, when it really comes down to it, people are going to play whatever characters they want anyway. At least as far as I've seen. If you have a character that you like and you're invested in, and you play that character and you know their moves and you know how to implement their tools properly, you're not really going to care what a tier list says. Like the tier list is just kind of an afterthought to you. You might look at a tier list like later on and be like, okay, well, where does my character stand in regards to every other character in the game? You might look at that. You might take a glance at it, but there's really no point in letting a tier list guide which character you play. I know Poke Chop would say play top tier or whatever, or he would probably just be like, hey man, like if you want to win, just go for the gold. And there's a lot of people out there that would probably say the same thing, just go for gold, man. And I agree with that to a point, but if you're looking to have fun in the game, if you're like initially speaking, then you probably shouldn't be looking at tier lists anyway. And like Devin said, there's always that next patch, man. There's always the next patch. What happens next patch if your character is too strong? Or if your character's too weak? The character that you're playing right now might be the best character in the next season of the game, or the next version patch of the game. You might not even have to wait that long. They might change like a couple of things about different moves in your character, and your character might be one of the best characters in the game just off that. I know people don't really like Astaroth like that because Astaroth is super powerful, and there are some moves that I gotta admit, man, that's kind of crazy. Some of the stuff that Astaroth can do is a little wild, but he's not one of the best characters in the game. But I've never actually gone out of my way to look and see where he sits on the tier list because I don't care. I'm looking, like I think I've stated this before, I'm playing by rule of cool, man. The coolest character gets my vote. So if I pick the coolest character that I can see, I'm like, man, I'm playing this character. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, but that character sucks. I don't care. I'm playing this character. But at the same time, sometimes you got to look at the tier list and kind of see where your character stacks up to know what other people's. I guess it kind of gives you a view into what other people's thoughts are about your character, and whether or not there are a lot of people who may or may agree, some people who may disagree. But I think the most important thing is to stick with the characters that you like and not really go by what tier lists say. So I don't think tier lists are 100% necessary anymore. Just they're more for fun than anything. I think they're more for fun, and I think they should kind of stay in the for fun thing. So we're not necessarily, people don't feel married to having to play top tier characters.
I feel like tier lists are necessary, but only for competitive players. If you are anybody who is just a beginner, one thing beginners shouldn't do no matter what area you're going into is don't try to overload yourself at one time. You're basically just trying to, learn how to link a MK into a special, but at the same time trying to worry about what characters are all better than you. Like you worried about too much at one time. Like just focus on learning the game, learning the fundamental principles of the game, And also for people like Evan, you know, close. I'm not gonna say Evan, but people that kind of like have the mindset of Evan, like are people who play just for fun. You know, if you're just somebody who's playing just for fun, like then the tier list shouldn't matter to you. Like pick the character that you have fun with and go out there and have fun. You know, so tier list shouldn't matter to those two individual people. But at the same time, tier lists really should matter for people who are competitive players. If you're out here, you're trying to win first place at the tournament, you know, you're trying to go for gold, you know, go for broke. You need to know everything about your competition. You need to study your competition. You need to know what player plays who, what that character can do, and where they stack up against, you know, other characters. If somebody's playing Akuma who's A tier and you're playing Ed, you know, who Evan religiously tells us doesn't even have an overhead,
I know,
you
man.
might have some problems, you know. And that's something that you might need to take into account because you're actually trying to achieve the highest pinnacles in this scene. So that's something that you really need to know. Also, it's good for seasonal changes to see how much your character has changed in relationships to everybody else. You know, we know from season. I mean, we know Ryu from like season 2 to like 4. People were saying sucked, but then next thing you know, in 5, he shot up and you know these people who come and make these tier lists. That's like a visual representation to show you without having to do all the hardcore studying and stuff like that, who's moved to where and who's done what. But that could also lead to a con with tier lists. You need to make sure you know who's making the tier list because a lot of people just hurry up and make them just for the engagements. You know, like it ain't been a week and a half and you got a tier list out houseway. You know, so you know you need to pay attention to who's out here dropping the tier list. Make sure you find players who you can trust and you know really is out here doing it, you know, just because they want people to really know the viability of characters and not because I need a couple of retweets. Um, you know, so yeah, and also tier lists, if you want to start in competition, they give you like a good fundamental playing field of like, okay, who I might want to start with. You know, like if I want to play B on up, I know these characters are B on up, and then let me find the character in here that I actually like or that I actually want to play with. But yeah, so that's my idea. I don't think tier lists need to go away. Like we don't need them anymore. Certain people do need them, but at the same time, certain people don't need to worry about them either. So they're just kind of like they're there. They're there if you need it, but if you don't need it, then don't worry about it. You know. And yes, they have kind of become a meme. Like you know, they're everywhere. You know, even like tier lists are everywhere, doing all types of different like rankings of different things. But as far as fighting games, I don't think they need to go away. They need to stay here. They have a place.